Alright you guys, so at the time I'm recording this video, almost every single NBA team has played at least one game so far into the season. Don't get me wrong, there are so many teams around the league that I am dying to get into and discuss with you guys. There is one team in particular that I wanted to get into almost immediately after I watched the game. And in case any of you guys somehow missed it, this was probably one of the craziest season opening games for any team that we have seen in quite a while. Ultimately, the team we are talking about did come up on the short end, and yes, you probably guessed it by now, we're talking about none other than the Boston Celtics. Because even though yes, it is only one game, there were many different anticipations and expectations of this team by many people around the entire league, and what seems to be the Boston Celtics blueprint for this season, and on top of that, what we might have already figured out about them is what we are going to dive into in today's video. One sec, if you haven't yet, don't forget to like the video if you do enjoy, subscribe, and turn on those noties to never miss another NBA video. Love you guys. I know you've probably heard it before, but believe me, I am highly encouraging you to hit the sub button, because according to my numbers, around 97% of you guys coming back to watch this content haven't even subscribed yet. So for any of you that do, believe me, I appreciate you more than anything in the entire world, so thank you. But anyway, let's get back into what we're here for. And that is many different things that have to do with this Boston Celtics roster going into the 2021-22 season. Because I think it's rather obvious to almost anyone that's an NBA fan, and in particular a diehard Boston Celtics fan, that this team definitely did not make a big amount of noise this offseason, or at least the amount of noise that many fans were anticipating. Regardless of that fact, and Boston Celtics fans know it through and through, that the expectations of this team going into this season were not going to change by any means necessary. Because even though last year did not turn out to be as successful as Boston Celtics fans were hoping, this had to do with many different factors, whether it was the constant injuries they were seeing, health and safety protocol, etc. It was a weird year for Boston basketball, we'll leave it at that. But I think many people tend to forget that the core of this Celtics team is relatively the same as the team that made it to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago, was just 2 games away from an NBA Finals appearance. But even with what we've seen out of this team over the last few years, there are still many people around the league that believe the Celtics cannot make a championship run with a leading duo of Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. You know, you guys, after this opening night game, I just absolutely love to see Jaylen Brown go out there on that court time and time again and prove everybody wrong that's been doubting him for years. Because to say this man put up a ridiculous opening night performance for the Boston Celtics would honestly be an understatement. Because again, in case any of you guys missed this game, let me be the first person to tell you that Jaylen Brown put up a stat line of 46 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals in 46 minutes played, while shooting 53% from the field overall and 57% from 3. And also, not to mention, he did this relatively without touching a court over the last 2 weeks because of health and safety protocols. So yeah, I'm not saying that Jaylen Brown has proven that he can be a second option on a championship team in just one night of this season, but it's more obvious than ever before that he is continually improving his resume and that he can be this guy on a night in and night out basis. Because unless you've been living under a rock since Jaylen Brown entered the league in 2016, every year besides his sophomore to his third year transition, he has improved in almost every major statistical category by a reasonable amount. And with this rant that I'm doing, I should also make it clear that I'm not implying that this Boston Celtics team is going to win the championship this year, because I think even Celtics fans themselves will look you in the eye and tell you that it's probably not going to happen. It's not even from what we just saw out of Jaylen Brown in this game, but even from years prior, it still blows my mind that people think these two cannot lead a championship team. Not in specific right now, but at least down the line. Anyway, besides the fact of Jaylen Brown absolutely balling out and having the possibility of another career year, that the fact of the Boston Celtics either winning or losing all of their games this season is going to ride almost entirely on the success of both Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. Because I'm sure almost everybody knows that's watching this, even though Jayson Tatum did put up a 20-piece in this opening night performance, was extremely underwhelming to say the very least, as he shot 7 for 30 from the field overall and just 2 for 15 from 3. It's very obvious that this was simply put a bad game from Jayson Tatum, but to think about even if he had just a mediocre night, what the difference in this outcome would have been. Also with this statement, this is in no way bashing the surrounding cast and support of these top 2 players, as they actually did better than what many expected, I believe, as they did have players like both the Williams and Marcus Smart all putting up 15 plus, and on top of this, Schroder and Langford putting up some solid numbers off the bench too, which will be pretty consistent for the most part throughout the entire season. Take that as you will. I'm not saying the surrounding cast of this team played perfect by any means whatsoever. Like we said, the success of this team is going to be riding on the ability of both Tatum and Brown, season. I think and am fully confident that these two are going to be able to step up to a higher standard than they ever have so far in their career. Also, you guys, with all of these sky-high expectations on both Tatum and Brown, I think the NBA world needs to chill just a little bit and remember the fact that these two are still just 23 and 24 years old right now. They can keep this core going and make even bigger moves down the road in the offseason to fit around these guys more accordingly. I think it's going to be pretty scary to see what these guys can do. I'll just leave it at that. But if we had to go into one major flaw about the Celtics from what we've seen so far this season, I ultimately think it would be the defense that we have seen, and for one reason in specific. This is because of the coaching switch this offseason and many moves around the front office, that the Boston Celtics have implemented a new defensive strategy. At least that's what it seemed like in the game that we saw. Put it as simply as I can, they did hold up and were solid for the most part, but it's clear this is going to take some getting used to for the overall rotation. Although, yes, it was a double overtime game, giving up 138 points is something the Celtics were not anticipating was going to happen. On top of this is something that I'm sure they are actively going to work to fix as the year goes on. All in all though, you guys, not even just from a Boston Celtics perspective, but from an overall NBA perspective, I think the beginning of this NBA season has lived up to all of the hype and then some. I absolutely cannot wait for what we're going to see down the line over the next few months. Now is the time where I want to hear what you guys have to think. So please let me know in the comments down below what you saw out of this Celtics team so far this season, and on top of that, what are your expectations for them going forward? Do you think they'll be a top 3 to 4 seed in the Eastern Conference, or do you see them in the bottom of the bracket? Let me know what you guys have to say. You guys know when it comes down to it, I ultimately make these videos to strictly talk basketball with you guys. Mean it when I say this, I read every single comment. Believe me, your feedback does not go unnoticed. But I also wanted to say again, if you haven't already, don't forget to go down below and leave a like on the video if you did enjoy, and subscribe while you're down there. Guys, it never felt like it would get here, but the NBA season is finally here, and believe me when I say it, we are going to be pumping out content like crazy over the next few weeks. But yeah, to put it simply, you will not regret hitting this button. Once again, I just wanted to say thank you so much to each and every one of you for watching. Appreciate y'all more than anything in the entire world. You all know this, and I will see you guys in the next video.